Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that gives you insights on how to plan a successful event. I'm excited to see you guys. My name is Keith Willard. I'm your creator and the host, and as well as an event planner. Today, we're going to be talking about micro weddings because we're living in a brand new age, and everything that we have all thought about when it came to weddings and events is changing rapidly. And a lot of couples are deciding to do a smaller, more intimate event that's maybe in their backyard or maybe in a local clubhouse instead of the large event at the hotel, and maybe doing a larger celebration later. So luckily, we've got three incredible people that are going to be talking about how to create a micro wedding and some of the things that you need to be looking out for. But before we get to these lovely ladies, let me introduce our Behind the Veil crew. First is Marcy Gutenberg with An Affair to Remember by Marcy, an invitation company. It's great to see you, Marcy.
Hello. Great to be here.
Next, we have Nicole Sellers with Sia Ali Events, a vintage rental company. Thank you, Nicole. It's glad to see you again.
Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Love it. And then, of course, Brooke Logan Stoner, our fresh eyes on the street, the one that gives us a perception that, that we're not always like true professionals in this world. And sometimes we need to answer those questions that, a regular person may have. So it's great to see you, Brooke.
Thank you for that horrible introduction. Hi, Nicole. I miss you.
I miss you too.
All right. So first of all, I want to introduce Kelly Murphy. Kelly is the owner of Events on the Loose, having begun the industry in 1992, along with her husband, Bob, founding Panache Event Rentals. They sold that business in 2007, but Kelly stayed on with Panache until the itch for entrepreneurship started back up. And in 2015, she started Events on the Loose. She also began providing event rental provisions that are unique in the space of guest seating, buffet enhancement, culinary service, tabletop offerings, products, and utilization in events. And I just completely messed it up, but you totally get the idea. She has and continues to work with culinary events and festivals, including the Sobe Festival and the Sobe Seafood and tons more, and also a massive advocate of Feeding South Florida. And it's great to see you, Kelly. Thank you for being on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Love it. Next, I want to welcome Danielle Peacock. Danielle Peacock is the owner of Peacocks Pantry Catering and is, of course, I've known you personally, and I've never called you chef, but we're going to say Chef Danielle grew up in South Florida. Her earliest cooking lesson took place in her Italian grandparents' kitchen. She appreciating the art of picking fresh vegetables from the family's garden and creating the traditional Sunday family feast. She graduated from the University of Florida with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and attended Miami Culinary Institute for Culinary Management in 2012. She established Peacocks Pantry Boutique Catering from the true love of catering and cooking and a commitment towards making her events an unforgettable experience. She has a flair for creating extraordinary food and unique event atmosphere, and for which most people can savor their experiences. And I know personally how incredible your food and your production is. So it's great to see you, Danielle.
Thank you.
And then, of course, finally, to our kind of large group today is Susan Jaffe Reben. It's so great to see you. So Susan Jaffe is the owner of Pieces of Dreams. And so your father was a catering director. Your mother was an interior designer. So you've always been an artist. You have a degree in fashion, interior design, and graphic design, and you started Pieces of Dreams in 2001, which means you've had
2,000 years ago.
2001. It's great to see you, Susan. I'm so excited to have you on as well. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about micro weddings, and I'm actually going to start this conversation off with Susan to tell us what is a micro wedding. I mean, for people out there, because that term gets tossed around all the time. What is a micro wedding?
Okay, so a micro wedding is a petite version of your grand wedding. It's as simple as that. I don't love the term micro, even though that's what we use. It sounds so clinical. To me, it's a smaller, more intimate event so that it's safe as it could be in these times of uncertainty and what we're dealing with. It's still your special day. It's your moment. It's your memory forever, but it's just a smaller scale of it.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It really is important to think that, just because you've moved your wedding from a larger format, let's say a hotel ballroom, to your backyard, doesn't mean that you have to reduce the quality of the pieces that are part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Kelly, you obviously have a company that is dedicated to that kind of thing.
Yes, I started as we're going forward. I'm starting petite parties, and the whole idea of it is to capture certain of the essence. This is still your day. This is the date that you wrapped yourselves around for your wedding, and whether you're going to have a larger one down the road, this is still that intimate moment in your life together as you are officially joined. So think of your details. Think of where you want it, whether it's for 2 people, 20 people, or whatever the venue will allow socially to keep the distancing. But you keep the elements, you keep all those parts that are so special.
And talking about those parts, Kelly Murphy with Events on the Loose. Now, I'm a little, I actually already use Kelly for a bunch of events, including a micro wedding that I'm going to be doing at the end of October. So I already love you, but, tell us a little bit about what Events on the Loose provides, because it is really a great place to go when you're thinking about doing a micro wedding, because you have all the pieces and parts.
Well, we do. We have all the guest seating. We have the tableware. We can set up a kitchen for folks like Danielle to create an amazing meal for you. When I think about, I don't like to call them micro weddings either. I prefer an intimate dinner party with your friends and family, which is started with a ceremony to celebrate your wedding. So setting the table, keeping that part of it, the elements there, keeping it just stunning. You're still celebrating, so it doesn't mean to take anything away. But we have the glassware, the china. Some of it's behind me. I'm sitting in my showroom actually, so
I love that.
A little glimpse of it. It's actually very quiet here today, so that worked out very well. But we like to work with the caterer and the planner so that we can all come together, and the decorator to come together to create a palette for the menu, the flow of the events, and just kind of bring it all those pieces together. So not singularly. We like to work as a team.
And I think that's important. And Danielle, as an off-site caterer, I've personally witnessed the incredible stuff that you're able to do. And that's why I really wanted you on, because I think that the product that you provide, I think it's really important that when people think about hiring a caterer, a lot of people worry that, it has to be 400 people. Tell us a little bit about what people should think about as far as numbers of people and what kind of services you provide.
Well, so, we are a farm to table caterer, so we're going to always offer products that are within season. We do our best to always provide, antibiotic, hormone free, and all of, the best quality grass-fed organic products that we can get. So the nice part about these intimate, petite events is that it gives us the flexibility to use some ingredients that we wouldn't normally use in a large event, because we're able to kind of give these dishes a little bit more experience.
Yeah.
Not everything is available in large volumes, right? So especially when you're trying to locally, procure things from certain purveyors, I can only get certain abundance of certain things. So I think it's been really refreshing for us to go outside of the box with menu items, because, it is like a private chef event when you're doing an intimate party for 25 or 40 people versus doing a wedding where it's 150 to 300 people. It's a very different experience. So we're loving this, and we are, listen, we did Super Bowl this year, so don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's a little stressful, but
that part.
I love being able to walk around the room, when I'm on the floor, and my team is able to get to personalize with the guests a little bit more. We're able to connect in a way that we weren't really connecting before, because in this mass volume, the immediates, right? So
Mm.
I think it has kind of created a more intimate experience for everyone. And as much as I know, I had a very small wedding. We had 65 people, and we did that because we wanted to have our immediate friends and family only versus, the large extended Italian family that I could have had.
Yep.
It created an environment that was very pleasant for us. We were able to enjoy ourselves as a bride and a groom a little bit more, and it definitely took the pressure off of us financially.
Right.
We were able to do things a little bit more elevated than we would have done if we had 150 people for 65. So
And I think that's a big point.
Yeah.
That's actually a really big point because, I think that a lot of times it gets lost when we do these really large events at the W or at the Conrad or at the Ritz-Carlton. They get kind of massive in size, but it also means that the personal experience may be reduced. And we started that you actually did your own wedding, but that you wish you hadn't, or at least had a professional come in kind of the last week.
Terrible.
I did my own wedding.
Right? Well, Susan, I assume you would.
Your own wedding.
That's talented, but still,
It's hard to, we all know the elements that have to be put into it, from our experience, but trying to be the host and the planner, it just doesn't work. We still had fun, we laughed, but I can't tell you all the things that went wrong. To this day, we're laughing. But I highly recommend if you can't afford to have someone that works with you from the beginning, then you should definitely have someone that's, we call it day of, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
Day of plus.
Just before.
Day of
That's just a trap. I've learned that.
Yeah. The day of, it's not like I'll show up on Saturday and here you go.
Right.
But
But would magically make everything happen the right way.
But they got to get to know you. So I think that's that's something that's extremely important, and that's kind of the beginning.
Right.
And just to guide you through, just to keep your timeline going, even on a small dinner party, because you can get caught up, on one course too long, or you want music or you want to do something. I don't think we're dancing that much anymore.
Yeah, well, maybe by ourselves, but
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm just saying maybe the drunk uncle in the corner had something going for them. I'm just saying.
And he's usually the one that's playing DJ Quick anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I actually was talking to Susan briefly about, and is one of the deals or things that people need to start thinking about when they do an intimate affair in their backyard are some of the rules that you might not even be aware of, in like HOAs. Susan, what are some of the things that people should be looking out for when it comes to doing an event in their backyard when it comes to their HOAs? What are the major
I
pitfalls?
think that whether it's in your backyard, and that scares me even more, because then we're dealing with the elements. I'd rather have it a place like Danielle's where it's a chameleon that we can create anything. But regardless of where you have it,
Right.
You must follow the social distancing. You must make sure that your guests are safe. You want to have masks. You don't want to have, in my opinion, Danielle, correct me, I don't think that I would be very careful with past hors d'oeuvres. I'd rather have like personal plates. I'd rather have my guests seated almost in their pods of where their comfort zones are within their bubbles. I think that you just, the same as when we go out now, you must rigidly follow the rules. It scares me as much as I can't wait, first of all, to be able to have great events again. You've got to do it safe. You can't play around with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like chicken nuggets in a box and Tootsie Rolls aren't it. You know what I mean?
No, it's definitely not it. Well, and even if you're talking about doing your event in your backyard, one of the things that I think that people have to think about are delivery issues, parking issues, even trash issues. And Kelly, you and I were talking about, and I think Danielle could chime in, is what not to think about. It's not before the event that you have to think about. A lot of times people forget about after the event. Like what happens to all that stuff after the event? Can you enlighten us a little?
Yeah, that's something to think about. Whether it's a large or small event, is the assumption that someone else is going to take care of it, unless you actually specify that, you have someone delegated to pack everything up at the end of the night, break everything down. And usually working with the caterers, we can kind of come up with an agreement of, what they'll do, what we need them to do to have it ready for us if we're not picking up that night, which can be challenging too, especially in a residential with, noise in the trucks. So we like to come the next business day, but sometimes, we have to come on a Sunday. And there are certain communities you can't bring a truck in. They don't want any commercial vehicles in there on a Sunday. So you have to always check that. And if you're at a venue, don't assume that you can have stuff delivered anytime or picked up anytime. You definitely have to communicate with the venue and get their guidelines, because that can mess up everybody on the front end and on the back end. But a lot of times, we're so excited about getting the job done and having the party start,
right? And
then the cleanup and the pickup. So we don't. We're constantly reminding people about that. By the way.
Yeah. Don't forget. Well, I see Susan had a comment.
But because that's the same as no matter when we do a private event, I think that you can't presume because it's on a smaller scale, you can just get away with everything.
That's true. I mean, that's the other thing is that, people think, oh, maybe we can slip under the radar. And sometimes that's true. I've always kind of held the belief that, you ask for forgiveness versus permission. But I think that if you're trying to keep good neighbors, maybe this might be the opportunity to ask permission. And talking about permission, Danielle, are there any things that people need to be worried about when it comes to food in backyards? Are there any permits or permissions or is this because it's on a private residence?
We haven't had any issues in regards to permitting. I mean, really, the majority of us are doing our mise en place in advance. So, we're getting to the client's house, doing the finishing touches, firing the food to order. I mean, so the reality is the permitting process, I don't think is relevant. I think that when you get into putting up tents and different types of large items that could be in the yard or doing any kind of major, entertainment needs. But I think that that's the glory of having a party in your own home, is that you have a backyard and it's yours and it's your private, other than noise ordinances and parking issues. I think that you pretty much have freedom to do what you want. We're doing a micro wedding in October. And I think the biggest challenge for us is to figure out where everybody's going to sit, because most residences aren't made to have tables for 40 guests in the backyard, plus a dance floor, plus a ceremony location, plus a field kitchen, so those are really the restrictions, is just being, and that's why a planner is so important, especially from, not only do we want to have a planner to make it pretty and to guide us along the way and get us engaged with the right vendors and be able to have educated, responses to questions. I think that they're also there to figure out all the small logistics that everybody needs to work through to make the event happen successfully and seamlessly without any issues, because it's your day, regardless if you're getting married in front of 10 or if you're getting married in front of 1,000. You're supposed to relax. It's your wedding day.
Well, and logistics are a big part of what an event planner does, and figuring out, and if you have an event planner, I think it's the event planner's job to figure out what the rules and what have you. By the way, Susan Jaffe just dropped off. She'll be joining us right back, having a little technical issue, and there she is. Okay, good. So what is, you mentioned field kitchen, and it's something that's not part of the industry. What is a field kitchen?
It's basically a portable kitchen. So we call them field kitchens because obviously it's us taking everything that we would use in our commercial facility and setting up a staged kitchen in an outside location.
Right.
So that could be working out of a garage. That could be working out of a tent on the side of somebody's home.
On West Palm Beach in the rain.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And running food with umbrellas over your heads. I mean, we've done it. That could be working in a hallway in a condo building, in a fire exit,
right.
But it's essential because we want to fire everything fresh to order. So we need to have the appropriate tools
Right.
and appliances to do that. And, when we don't have those things in house, that's I call my girlfriend Kelly Murphy, and, she'll come deliver me a, whole thing. So I don't have to worry about it.
Well, and somebody mentioned earlier about space in the backyard. And so, Susan, I mean, I know that I've had to build stages and stuff over pools. I'm assuming, right? And so have you. I mean, what are some of the things that people need to even think about when they're trying to expand the amount of space in their property, especially when it comes to pool covers? I mean, I know some of the issues that I've run into, but I'd like to get your perspective on that.
Well, I think as far as putting something over a pool, number one, you always must have the best reputable companies that you're working with. These are not the times when you're trying to save $1 because, it's just got to be done right. And remember, I still go back to the same thing. This is your special day. This is you want this perfect. So when we're doing this, hire the professionals, hire the people, the best that know what they're doing. Make sure they have the permits. You can't just think that things are going to happen.
Right. No, I mean, that's really true. I mean, I know that I've used a company called Elegant Parties a couple of times, and they've done a great job when it comes to covering pool. But a lot of people don't realize that it's a much longer process, that it takes multiple days. There's construction involved, and that means having people in and out of your backyard, and I think that's the other part of that is if you're going to do an event in your backyard, you probably need to think about the fact that it's not just that day. A lot of times, Kelly, I mean, I'm assuming that based on delivery schedules, you may have to deliver the day before and pick up on a Monday.
Well, and depending on the scale and the scope of items being put in, if you have the pool covers, yes, they start, and especially if there's going to be some kind of inclement weather, and you want to get your tent up, that has to go up a couple of days in advance. So you also have to consider if the ground is going to be dry. So sometimes they want to, push that a little further. So, you could have a wedding on a Saturday, and in theory, your tent could go in on Tuesday because the anticipated rain. You don't want them installing a tent or even the pool cover when it's raining. It's the biggest mess, especially if you have sod in the backyard, and it can be a mud pit. And so now you want to protect your lawn from the water. And then, depending on how it's set, we may have to come in the day before or even 2 days before.
I get it.
What you do.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you have to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there any food restrictions that people would be limited to because they're having to use an outside caterer, or is it something that you can basically do any kind of menu? And that's to you, Danielle, obviously. Yeah, I was like, let me ask the chef.
No, I mean, if you want to have a wood-fired pizza in your backyard, Miss Murphy has one that she can just deliver right in there. There are.
And then, of course, your chef would be able to do a wood-fired pizza. But yeah, right? So almost anything's available. But do you think that
tacos and tequila?
Tacos and tequila, right? True story.
There are
anyway,
no restrictions, really. I mean, power. Let's talk about power, because from a catering perspective, we need power. And from an AV perspective, we need power. So I think that is one of the largest challenges that I have experienced doing residential work is the need for a generator, needs to be discussed when you're, designing the menu and what equipment do I need to bring in, and, what is the band or DJ or, what are the lights on the tent? Like, power is probably the biggest challenge because residences aren't set up with that many circuits, right? So I mean, in our event studio, that's one of the challenges that we had when we built was we were like, we need power everywhere, and then, we started to design the front for, this pop-up market that we're doing. And now I have all these additional appliances in here. So, back comes the electrician, put more power. So, we got American here. We're good.
Well, and Susan, talking about power, I mean, what are some options that people can consider? And
you can rent generators. You know, it's the same thing, Keith. How many times have you done an event and you need to have a power drop? You know, in a venue, you need to know what everyone's requirements are and what the facility has, whether it's a backyard, which I really like, makes me shake in today's time, or a venue. I'd rather go into venue, but we need that. And don't forget, also in a backyard, you need bathrooms.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You can't just count on the 1 or 2 bathrooms in your private home. Plus, you don't want people walking in there. So I think for me, in creating a petite party or these intimate events, I would look in terms of the same way I would do a larger one. What venue speaks to you the most? What's going to feel the best? What area can you create and design everything so you have your elements? Remember, on a petite party, it's not the same. It's not the huge size. So everything is right in front of you.
Right.
You want to have certain traditions. You want to have those elements, those design elements that are the wows, because you only have a small amount of people. So you still need to create your event in a space that works properly. Just like when we did the large events, you know, if you're going to have 300 people, but your room only accommodates 150, what are you going to do? You can't stretch out the walls.
Right.
Same thing for our smaller ones. If you
A big game of chicken.
Tavern, you're going to be lost. So we need to do things proportionately and go with where it's going to be the easiest. I think that we have enough dealing with everything now.
Well, and talking about venues, you know, obviously in South Florida, we're dealing with phase 2, which means we're at 50% occupancy. But of course, when we're talking about petite events, hopefully we're not having to worry about occupancy. But what about the other option, meaning that it's a super large space and we have to figure out a way to bring it down, bring it to an intimate space? What are some options that people may think about?
Draping. We can always drape a room to make it smaller. If it has air walls, we can work within that. You can create certain vignettes so that we have that. Nicole, you know, makes amazing vignettes. So you want to have some of those spots that people can congregate at in their, you know, in their little groups. I would create it so that the dance floor, there's a central focus, and so that your eye isn't going all around the perimeters of the room, but more being drawn in to the room to create that warmth.
Well, and Nicole, I know you had a comment on this, because I know that this is kind of your specialty, are these little vignettes. You know, elaborate.
Well, I just actually wanted to go back for a second, because we just went to an intimate birthday party and had with friends, and just some of the things that we were kind of talking about before that they had to do beforehand, which I think are good points. One, they checked with their city to see what the city allowed, first of all. And then they went to their neighbors and then to make sure that the neighbors were aware of what the city allowed. So they went to their neighbors to make sure, you know, and then to be obviously aware of any local noise ordinances, like what time does the music have to be down, and as like deliveries for commercial deliveries and things of that nature. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of those points. So if someone is planning to do a backyard event, and some of these items, you know, doing things in a private home are permitted, but we see occasions where people are now renting out, you know, a mansion on the beach or whatever, but these items aren't zoned to be commercial spaces, and you can get into some trouble. So you do want to be careful, because the last thing you need is the city coming and shutting down your event, whether it's intimate or not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, we don't want to run into, you know, obviously, if it's a small event, that would be the worst thing possible. But if you have something like Susan Jaffe in your life, you're not going to have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, for sure, no. But so that was just from some of the things that we had to go through just this past weekend. So
I'm gonna open this up to everybody. What are some of the pitfalls that somebody that is planning their own event, that you've had a personal experience that you said, you know what, in the future, I need to make sure that my client takes this into perspective? Marcy, I see you nodding your head, so I'm assuming that you have.
Yes, I actually have a great one. Remember that when you're doing an outside event, at the end of the night, you don't have the typical house lights that a ballroom or a big room would have. So you do need to make sure that there is sufficient lighting so that the people who are there to do a tear down that they are aware of their surroundings. You do have unlevel flooring, you do have transitional flooring, and sometimes it is graded down or up. So you do want to make sure that you're providing ample lighting for those areas, for the tear down process.
Well, and that actually brings up a good point, because a lot of people don't realize that in their backyard there's going to be little indentations that somebody could easily, snap their ankle. You don't want to think about that kind of stuff, but there is insurance out there, by the way, event insurance that people can take out for their own personal event, and I think that it's a good investment. Nicole, any insight into like some of the pitfalls that people should be, thinking about?
Well, I think, Susan and Kelly and Danielle have already, and I've had the pleasure of working with all of the lovely people on the panel, which is always a great enjoyment to me. But it's never as easy as it looks, and you do want to, and you do want to enjoy your event. But one thing I think that people are, because they're not doing such large events, like Danielle said, they're able to do elevated, they're able to have things that they weren't necessarily able to have. They are able to expand maybe on some seating groupings or some other alternative areas for people, their guests, to enjoy. And get in a professional. It'll make your life so much easier. And, many of us are available. If you're not looking for full planning, many of us are available for partial, or that can help out even with, even with helping connect you to the right vendors. So there's a lot of professional resources. If you're going to a caterer like Danielle, she can connect you to people who have the things that you may need or want, or if you're working with Susan or Marcy, they're on the front end of it. They can get you to the right people so you can have a seamless event. And like Susan said, making sure you check recommendations, make sure people are insured. That will make your life go much easier, and you're not going to end up with having someone who takes a deposit that you never hear from again. And unfortunately, that does happen. So find the best people you can find.
And I think that's really important that, all of us on this panel have been in the business for a long time. And I think it's really important that everybody when you're talking to your client, that they listen to your recommendations, because you're not going to recommend anybody that you don't want to work with. I mean,
not normally.
Not normally. And you mentioned, so Katana, by the way, Katana Kaplan from Gallery of Amazing Things actually just made a comment on our Facebook Live that she actually was dealing with an offsite event where they didn't take into parking. They didn't consider parking. And that's a big one. I mean, when you're talking about event space. I mean, Susan, have you run into an issue with that? I mean, I know you're like, if it's at a venue, you don't have to think about that, but
you have to think about parking at a venue too, because you have the valet and you've got to make sure you have enough coverage. So I think that what you need to do when you're creating this event, our smaller, intimate events, is realize it's still an event. So all of the same details, all the same elements that you're going to put into your larger ones go into the smaller ones. Just because it's smaller doesn't mean that you don't think about all of this. And I think 1,000%, have a professional on board. It will help, but don't diminish what these events are about. This is your special day. This is your wedding. This is your child's bar mitzvah. This is a life event, whatever it is. So you need to figure it proportionately. And then it still goes down the entire checklist of everything that goes into it, from your invitation to down to a party favor at the end and everything in between, including masks.
Marcy, is that something you would actually put in the invitation?
What is that?
The parking?
The parking situation. Is that something
depending on if there is a real need for it. Most of the time, it's really kind of, you drive up and you would see the valet there. So
exactly.
You really don't need to put it in an invitation. But one of the cautions I would tell people is that just because you're having a smaller, intimate event, then you still don't want to plan too close to the event, meaning that you really want to give it its due diligence. This is a special day. You want to make sure it's done right. And, the process for things still takes place, whether it's for the invitations, whether it's for ordering food and so forth. So you do want to make sure that you're doing things in a timely fashion.
Because I feel like it's kind of borderline tacky to put that on an invitation, especially the caliber that you make yours at.
Yeah.
But then again, also that I know firsthand with Keith that can be a problem if that's not handled properly.
I do directions.
If I was going to say, if you were going to do anything, I would do it on a separate card rather than the invitation itself.
Correct.
On a direction card with some special instructions.
I do know that the last few residential weddings that we did, they asked all of their guests to Uber, and they specifically put in their, wedding website, parking is restricted. It's for bridal party and, elderly family only. There is no parking. Please Uber. There's no parking.
That's
because,
cute. Yeah, that way the invitations aren't tacky.
Yeah.
Well, and sorry.
I also, I wanted to bring up something about when we're doing our intimate events.
Right.
What about what about all the people, our guests that we want to include in our event, but we can't physically have them there? Like ways that we can still have them as part of our celebration.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to actually answer that for you.
It's okay. I have some ideas, but go for it. Marcy.
So I just wanted to actually point out that when you're doing an invitation, you can do 2 different invitations. I'm actually in the process right now of doing 2 separate invitations for the same client. One is going to be for her in-person guests versus her virtual guests.
Oh, that's
right.
And you just kind of want to make sure that you're giving the focus, the process, so that you don't want to send out the wrong invitation to the wrong person.
Right.
So you do want to make sure you're being very
if you're inviting them to the Friday night dinner, or to the Sunday brunch, you want to make sure you have everybody, the right ones get stuff.
Right. And I'm going to actually get back to the social distancing part, because Susan, you brought this up at the beginning, but Danielle, how are you handling the idea of past hors d'oeuvres in this world of COVID? I mean,
so if you attended any of our events prior to COVID, you know that we are vessel heavy. We are an eco-friendly company. We love to put things in a very boutique kind of stylish presentation. So we like to use individualized vessels. It is one of the things that we've always done from the very beginning. So that is a standard implementation now, is that everything is in its own vessel. It is not something that's going to be on a platter that a client is going to pick up with their hands, where anybody can touch anybody else's food. We have been looking into acrylic shields for the top of our hors d'oeuvre platters. So that is the secondary option. As we start to see the volume of our events increase, we'll contract more of those. So it'll be like a small clear shield. So it acts as like a sneeze guard in essence. I think that as long as you maintain social distancing from a service perspective,
right.
I think that it's imperative to have respect for one another as a guest and as a service professional, that we're not on top of each other and that we're making sure that everybody's being respectful of one another's space. It has been very successful for us. Honestly, we have not really had any issues. I think the biggest challenge is going to be as we start to get into, larger volume events and getting back into that buffet style of food, because we've really been very fortunate to do plated only. And we use plate covers, so that's not an issue for us either. Doing buffet, because the mandate is that we are to serve the food if we're going to do a buffet, and there should be a guard. So when you have a 150 person event at a buffet, and I just think that that'll be the next challenge for us.
Yeah.
But right now, past hors d'oeuvres, I think people appreciate the individualized portions. They have their own little plate.
Like a bento box?
Little buckets. We have these like little pails that the servers have. So when they are passing the food,
right,
they take the trash at the same time. So, because you always have that thing of, I'm holding my cocktail and now I've got this vessel.
Right.
I put my drink down. So we try to make things as easy and user-friendly as possible.
Well, and talking about those, you said that you're plate heavy, individual plate heavy, and that's Kelly Murphy from head to toe, right? For all the individual plates. And I had to tell you that I was really excited that, I had a wedding that, again, was at the end of October. We're going to be at the W. We're going to be 150 people. Now we're doing 20 people in their backyard. And I'm having to cover the pool, but the thing that I love about it is that I got to go and do like really cool dishes, something that they would not have ever been able to do at a big box hotel.
Right.
And, I think, and Kelly, your staff was amazing in helping me design that. So I think that's important to let people know.
I finally get to wear my new shoes.
Well, if we have an idea of what people are looking for, I mean, we can preset that. That's, a lot of people have been cautious about going out and coming into our studio here, but we're by appointment. And if you give us a heads up of, if you look at the website, get your Pinterest board or whatever it is, your mood board going of what your style is, then we can get things done in advance for you so that when you show up, you don't have to be here for a long time. Although we love having you, Keith, it's okay. But you don't have to spend a lot of time, and we respect, that.
Just don't bring that girl.
Oh, that's funny. Well, no, I'll bring you once in a while, bro. Well, what I actually really appreciated, though, is that because we're doing everything via Zoom, and I think Susan can join me on this, it was really nice to have that preset visual done. So that way it was just an easy phone call, an easy Zoom call to be able to show them what it looks like on the table already done.
Right.
People are visual. A lot of times we have these discussions and we're like, oh, this particular type of china, this type of silverware, and we can visualize it in our own heads. Yeah. But our clients don't.
No.
Well,
go ahead.
As creative people, we think everyone sees the world the way we do. And it's like a shock when you find out they don't. So we see it.
That is so true. Oh my goodness, that is so true, because we're very visual people, and we can build the whole event in our heads, and all of us do it. And then sometimes it's that translation issue that comes into, like, how do we translate it to somebody and now at a distance, because we don't have the ability to show them books and to be in person.
Right.
And Marcy, I mean, for you, when it comes to invitations, that's got to be even crazier, because a lot of people want to touch and feel the paper. Yeah,
it is definitely. It's definitely a different world. A lot of times I'll either do in a Zoom meeting with somebody, or I'll take pictures and I'll send it to them. But I'd like to take it up close so that they can see like the texture of the paper, or if it's a smooth paper. And then they would like to see more of a visual of what it's going to look like in the end. So I try to give them as the best image that I can within, the scope of dealing with virtual.
And then Danielle, how are you handling? Because I know you do tastings, right? And God knows I love going to your tastings.
Yeah.
But how are you handling tastings during this crazy time?
We are
wontons. Yum.
Yes.
I miss the tuna one.
Let's just have a little get together already. My God.
Oh my God! I haven't
been to the new space yet.
I mean, Keith is on a Zoom.
And 150 parking spots. Let's do it already. We're doing tastings. They're by appointment only. We have never done public tastings ever.
I was about to say.
We have always felt that the best way to highlight the menu that the client has selected is to do what is on their menu. And we're sticking with that. I think that, we didn't do tastings for, let's say, probably the first 4 months, the heavy portion of COVID. I think that everybody is ready to be out. We are, if you know me, I'm a germaphobe already. So if you can only imagine what it's like here in operation, you'll know that, I'm bleaching and scrubbing and disinfecting and Clorox wiping everything and Lysoling. So, I think that and I'm in 2,000 square feet. So if I have 4 people in 2,000 square feet, I think we're pretty safe when it comes to social
And she always has a lighter anytime I need it.
So, and I honestly, I have to tell you, a lot of the weddings that we've booked lately have not requested a tasting. They have been very trusting of their planners and their referrals. And that's such an incredible honor to me, because I, being a foodie before I was a chef, I was like, I'm going to try the food before I buy it. That's just the nature of the beast. But we have actually received a lot of business interest from the family meals. So people that have just been like, oh, we got this amazing family meal delivered to us, and this chef is amazing. And they're like, oh, we're having a shower, or we're having a wedding, or we're having a family birthday party. And it's been very referral based for us lately, which is great, because the majority of our business was corporate. We had a really large corporate segment, and our immediate relationships with our planners and our venues. So we're very grateful that we have been able to.
Well, and talking about bleach, right? And Kelly, you do a lot of dishes, a lot of silverware.
Yes, we do.
When that stuff comes back to you, what is the process? What is the process in order to make sure and to kind of help people go, this is a place that I want to rent from?
Well, first of all, before COVID, we always wash and process our dishware, our flatware, our glassware in 180-degree water. We've done that for 30 years. So everything is sanitized, and then it's individually wrapped on the way out. Obviously, you can't do that on the way back in, but generally the caterer will do a rinse or a scrape so that we don't have food coming back to us.
Right.
It's not pretty, and it doesn't smell nice after a few days. So we ask that the creme brulee is not in the dish anymore. And so, we get it back and we go through the process. We do a pre-wash, pre-rinse, pre-wash, hot wash, hot rinse,
right.
Final rinse, let it dry with a rinse agent.
Sounds like laundry.
Right?
But that goes back to what we were saying. If you're using great vendors, you're using the right level, then you have that trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. I mean, and when, we started to do this, when everybody was very concerned about surfaces being contaminated. So, our glass racks are all wrapped. Our flatware is bagged and sealed, and dishes are wrapped. Our crates go through the machine as well. So, yes, it comes out of the machine clean and everything gets put in it. But then, we take an extra step. We use a surface sanitizer, and we just spray everything. Everything gets sprayed. Our furniture gets sprayed. Any of the crates we have, the outside of the plastic wrap gets sprayed. So that, our team has the spray bottles in the truck. So we're trying to kind of double up. Just being a little bit overly cautious, and
a better place to be.
Yeah,
Honestly.
There is a perception to how much can be cleaned. So we do our best to accommodate that.
Well, and I think that we've gotten to a point now that people are starting to come on the other end of COVID and said, look, we just want to start being with other people.
Right.
But let's figure out a way to do that safely.
Mm-hmm.
And you three are perfect examples of businesses that are already doing this and doing it successfully. And I think that's just really important for people to understand out there that are thinking about doing an intimate event or a smaller event, that it's happening already, and it's already happening, and it's being done safely, unlike the event that happened in up north. Maine, thank you. When you have 150 people and you had, super spreaders, you guys are definitely making sure that you're taking those steps to make sure that, the event is safe.
Right. And there's another thing that we actually implemented when we started COVID, because we did our first petite wedding, so to speak, and it was in June. And so we implemented, and that was when we started our Summer Chef series, we actually had sanitation signs made. So when we get on site, or if we have an event here at the event studio, we, on top of, Kelly Murphy's rentals that have already been sprayed, we're taking, hospital grade disinfectant in a rag. We're wiping the chairs, we're wiping the tables, we're wiping everything down. We're actually putting a sign that says this area has been sanitized. And then we're also putting, a boutique like little, glass bottle of hand sanitizer that says please sanitize, to kind of influence the guests as they're around the perimeter and sitting at their tables to at least hand sanitize while they're sitting there. So,
It's important.
You have to, everybody has to work together as a team. And I think that as long as everybody's on the same page with what their protocol is, and saying, well, just because the person on the loose is spraying the wood furniture doesn't mean that at a certain point in time before the guest sits down to eat dinner that, there is a potential that somebody might have touched it. So, we're just taking that extra step as well. And at the end of the night as well, making sure that, my staff has gloves on, they have their masks on, they're making sure everything's bagged in plastic bags versus being out, so that when we get back here, they can be sterilized and disinfected.
So Susan, when it comes to, I think this is a super important point. I think that, most people are worried about, viruses and about spreading things. How do you make this chic? How do you make being, clean and sanitized chic in today's world?
Well,
rhinestone everything.
That's Danielle's
Diamonds,
part,
baby,
or the venue's part. My side of it is how I would design it so there is the right distancing, that my guests would feel safe, and that masks are required. But then when they're dancing, and Kelly has this great mask now with a little flap for your straw.
Oh my goodness,
you need to think outside the box when you're doing this, so that we can keep making parties, and we're not going to go the other way.
Well, and I think that's really important. I think it takes a village, so to speak. We obviously have a mini village right here. It takes a village, and bringing up the sip and see. I'm just gonna brag on Kelly a little bit, because she did come up with a mask that doesn't fog your glasses and that you can still drink from a straw while being with your mask on. So
Greatest thing ever.
Right, greatest thing ever.
On today, I have my C.
I saw Keith, and all of a sudden I was like, I wonder if we could do like a box of wine and just do the cork thing and just be like,
you can do the mini bottle.
turn it off.
I wanted to say something, Keith, if I may, about inviting, because when we're doing these events, we still have so many guests, family that we would love to include, but we can't. I'm doing a wedding, and I'm sending out a Zoom box, and it's going to have the mini bottle with the straw and the mask and a little bit of the celebratory parts, just so my outside guests can feel that they're still part of it. And then at a certain point, there's going to be a Zoom so that they're enveloped in the party. It's another safety factor, so I can have more.
I love that.
If I could just add too, because Danielle did a really cute setup with the sanitizing on the table. She has adorable little bottles, pump bottles. But, where we've always had a gift table and a card table and a cake table, we're going to have a sanitizing station. And you want to make it look not so industrial. Well,
right, pastelized.
It's true. You don't want it to be
like no ER room.
Put a little style in there. Put a little style. So use your imagination. One of the things we did in the beginning, we couldn't get dispensers. You couldn't get a pump sanitizer. Everywhere you went, they're sold out. So we had to buy it by the gallon. And then I'm thinking, well, how am I going to pour this stuff? And
rhinestone it and just lay it there with some flowers, honey. And pump.
Everything.
Like, I'm telling you, it fixes everything. Glitter's horrible. Don't use glitter. It's messy. It's messy.
A drink dispenser. And we put it up, a mason jar drink dispenser, which it's still here. We still have it at our front door and here in our studio. And it takes, it gives just the right amount of sanitizer, and it looks cute, and we kind of decorate it. But, think about that's just another element, but make it nice. If it's got to be part of it, and you want to encourage people, if they can't wash their hands
right
there, but, have the opportunity to have one
Circle gets a square.
So Danielle, when it comes to serving food during these socially distanced times, do you have a server per table? Or what are some of the precautions that
we are sticking with the same level of service that we always have. So we haven't reduced service at all. We're just trying to maintain the least amount of contact as possible. Obviously, there are always single-use gloves that are being changed between each task. So when we're serving food, if they have gone from serving food to coming back into the kitchen to do a new task, there's always a new set of gloves. So we're really trying to, and then we're trying to, promote social distancing. So obviously when you're passing somebody food, you can't be like, hey, but,
which we all do a little bit.
Go fetch.
But we are trying to kind of maintain as much distance as we can
right
from the client, which is another reason why we are really focused on using plate covers and doing plated meals, because it really allows us to get the food from the field kitchen to the table. You know, it's been completely enclosed the entire time. We are back to tray service, which kind of just makes it easier for us versus, you know, carrying the plate in two hands. And, you know,
I mean,
it's 6 people at a table, so it's not, you know.
Well, and that's one of the things is that I'm using actually Kelly's these beautiful wood whitewash tables that we're now going to seat 6 people, where before we were seating 8 or 10 people. You know, just to give people a little room. You know, it may not be the full 6 feet, but we're trying to sit family members with family members,
Bubbles.
you know, people that are in the same household. And I think that's one thing that as an event planner, and Susan, maybe you can agree with me, is that we're having to take even extra consideration on seating charts.
Right.
Totally. You can't be too safe. I'm going to do it diagonal seating on an event so that I keep the bubbles of each family together, but still have a large family table.
And I think that what we're saying with everything that we've talked about is that events can still happen. I think that's the super important message here is that, yeah, we may need to rethink them. And yeah, maybe we're not doing the 150 people, but there's still an intensity and power that comes with doing these petite events that you might not be able to get with 150 people. You know, that you're going to be able to give them a much more specialized event, a much more, you know, experience, you know, specific experience that you may not have been able to do with 150. I mean, Susan, you just talked about doing these cool little boxes that are going to be shipped to people. I mean, how cool is that? You know, first of all, you don't have to deal with Uncle Bob, the drunk Uncle Bob in the corner, and you get a gift in the mail. I mean, he doesn't want a bottle of liquor.
It's just so that you still feel that the people that you would love to have there, but because it's not the right time to have them, but we still can, and they're still part of it. You know, you just, you know, to me, it's embrace the traditions, embrace what you're making the memories, embrace this day, and, you know, and make it as safe as possible. Go down your checklist over and over and over again. Use the professionals, use people that are focused on each one of our areas of what we know what we're doing and how to do it, you know, and make it happen. You're not spending the money that you would for 200 people if you're going to have 20 people. So you have a little bit more financial latitude.
And I think that's also important. Don't cut corners, because you're saving a ton of money. You're not having to do 150 people. So don't cut corners when you're doing it for 20. I think it's more important than ever that you upgrade that service. You upgrade that
at this point, I was going to say, double time, baby. You know, make sure we're all safe and everybody's enjoying their day and it lasts forever.
And that lasts forever. And I think that it's also important to have the right photographer. Just because you're doing a backyard event, don't skimp on the photographer, because those photos are forever.
That's right. You're making your memories in your life together. So, you know, it's what it's about.
Yeah, just because it's 20 people, it doesn't mean that you should, you know, use your iPhone to capture the memories. I still think that you need a professional to capture those, because again, it's going to be forever. You want to make sure that those photos last the test of time. And right?
Yeah.
The feelings
Huh?
The feelings are only there for one day, so you want to make sure to capture it in the biggest way possible, because that's what you're going to remember as as you're getting, you know, you grow older.
And the other thing is a photographer's eye sees differently than what you and I see. We just did a photo shoot the other day. Danielle was part of it, and the photographer was taking shots of the table, and he was letting me look in through his lens, and I was looking at how he was shooting it. What I saw and put together was one thing, and then what he shot and brought into it was totally different, and it totally changed the image even that I had in my head. So I was taking my iPhone shots, and then I kind of felt like kind of stupid because I looked at it and I was like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. But it's the same with your guests. I mean, they're going to capture nuances. They're going to capture, you know, intimate moments and conversations, and you want that to be done well.
Kelly's like, I'll just have what he's having.
Well,
I always say it's the details that define the difference, you know.
It really is.
Defining details.
Yeah.
It really is. All right. Well, and that's our hours. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I think that we went over some really important stuff. So Susan Jaffe Reben with Pieces of Dreams, you gave us some incredible insights. I love the bento box idea about shipping it. I love what the ideas that you were coming up with. That's incredible. Danielle Peacock with Peacocks Catering. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Kelly Murphy with Events on the Loose. Thank you for, helping people feel more confident about rentals and just in general, but only if they come from you, just FYI. And
I want to work on the 30th now. Thank you, Kelly.
And then again, thank you to our Behind the Veil crew, Nicole with CLA Events, Brooke Logan Stoner, and Marcy Gutenberg. We love you guys every week. Next week, we're going to welcome James Fritz from the Ritz-Carlton in New Orleans, who's going to be talking about the hotel side of all of this. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.